Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Becky, and we're parents to two little kids. Parenting isn't always easy. There are ups and downs, good days and bad days, days with way too much TV, and days with lots of laughter. Moments where you just feel overwhelmed, and moments where you've never felt more proud.
At the end of the day, parenting is super rewarding, but also super hard. This podcast is for all the parents out there who feel like they have no idea what they're doing, because we're right there with you. This is the Spill Proof Podcast. So, you might have seen our post on Facebook. I think it was Facebook. We said that we were not having a podcast last week. This week?
Last week.
So, we didn't have a podcast. We didn't record anything because we had a family emergency.
We did. Everyone is okay. Disclaimer, everyone's okay now, but we did have quite the scare.
Yes, there's no long-term anything bad. But it did end up with us having to go to the pediatric ED.
I think you should explain to people what ED is.
So ED is the emergency department, better known as the ER, but it's actually ED because the ER is the room itself.
Yes, but everyone calls it the ER.
Right. So
whole show called ER.
Right, which it's actually the ED.
Yes.
So just to get that out of the way, pediatric ED. My brother works there, so we try to use proper terms for that.
Yes, but we need to explain to our listeners.
Yes, so all of this compiled up to the trip to the pediatric ED.
Yes, and when Dave says only one of us can go, it's because of COVID. Only one of us was allowed to bring our little one to the ED. But let's back up and start with
the beginning.
Who, what, where, when, how. Yes. We dove right in there. So let me set the stage here. And then I'm going to let Dave take over because
I have firsthand account.
Yes, he witnessed the incident. So it's the night before Easter. And in my family, we have a tradition where we go on a bunny walk. So my siblings, their spouses, their kids, we all meet up at my parents' house. And we all go on a bunny walk around the neighborhood, where we basically walk around and see if we can see a bunny. And that's the Easter bunny getting ready, or one of the Easter bunny's, guys or team members who's kind of like scouting the night before the Easter bunny comes.
Like the elves of the Easter bunny.
Yes. And oddly enough, for probably 6 years in a row, we saw a bunny on this walk. But for the last probably 4 to 5 years, we have not seen a bunny. We do have a bunny that lives in our backyard, so we probably should have just invited everyone to our house, but our
COVID.
house is not on the bunny route. We walk the same route in our neighborhood every year.
It would cause a longer walk.
Yes. So we go on this bunny walk. It's like the first time Owen has been with his cousins, and we've all been together where most of us are vaccinated in a year. He's seen his cousins, but we're walking outside. It's nice out. Owen and Dave are running up and down the streets.
Owen ran pretty much the entire way.
Yeah, he's having a blast. So then and he also skipped a nap today, this day. He did not take his nap. And so I was waiting for a meltdown, but
it was building up to it.
It was. And I was ready for it. And I was like, it's
what
just
happened
gonna happen.
not happened, it
Yes.
would have been a meltdown at some point.
We got a different type of meltdown.
Yeah.
So we get back to my parents' house. We did not see a bunny this year. That's okay, though. The cousins are playing. They're just kind of running around.
We saw a
playing
bunny in
chase.
costume.
We did. My mom dressed up as the Easter bunny and
Terrified Owen.
Terrified Owen, terrified our daughter Emily. I've actually never heard Emily scream like that. We were taking a family photo it was just me, Dave, Owen, and Emily with the Easter bunny. And she was very quiet. She was kind of snuggling into me. And all of a sudden, she just went, ah! Like out of nowhere. It was hilarious. I wish we had caught it on tape, but we did not.
Because the Easter bunny, you have to explain it, had snuck up around your other shoulder that she wasn't on. So when she backed up, all she saw was giant
Easter bunny. Yes. So, appropriate reaction, but it was very funny. So cousins are running around. They run around the side of the house. Dave is kind of, trying to chase after Owen, just make sure he doesn't get into too much trouble. And on the side of my parents' house, there is this little like rock wall almost. I call it a rock waterfall, but there's no water.
But it's almost like makeshift rocks put into like making stairs, because there's almost like a stair
Yeah.
aspect to it
Yeah.
with
so
a rock retaining wall on the side.
yeah, if the rocks were not there, it would be a very, very steep little hill on the side of their house. But there's rocks there that
And these rocks aren't small.
no, they're huge. They're like
They're bowling ball
the
size
size
rocks.
of your head. Yeah. And they do make kind of stairs, but in my head I picture them as like instead of water,
waterfall.
it's a rock waterfall. Yes. And Owen ended up having an accident on this, and at this point the stage is set. I'm going to turn it over to Dave for his firsthand
Eyewitness experience.
Yes.
It was pretty awful. So, I mean, I always follow Owen around to make sure that he's okay, because it's close enough to the street where he could bolt out to the street. And typically he stays right around his cousins, so it's really not that big of a deal. But he ran after one of his cousins who happened to be hiding behind a tree. And I think he acted like he was going to go down the hill. I don't know if he actually went down the hill, but Owen just ran full speed down this hill. And it's probably 14 feet. I would say 14, 15 feet from
maybe
top
like
to bottom.
top to bottom. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
like
top to bottom.
It's not a drop off.
No,
steep.
it's an incline.
It's an
or it's a
incline, but
decline.
top to bottom, it's probably.
And we were at the
14
top.
feet.
Yeah, it's about 14 feet. So Owen was running down the hill and tripped, I would say, about halfway, a little past halfway. So he fell. He tripped and fell and flew through the air 4 or 5 feet, call it. Unfortunately, and I was right behind him. I mean, I was almost within reaching distance, and I saw it happening. Like, I saw it as it was about to happen. So I saw him starting to gear up, start running, and I knew how it was going to end. So I tried to get to him in time, but he just was just out of reach, and he tripped, which makes sense because there's roots and trees and all sorts of stuff to trip on, and he flew through the air and landed on this rock waterfall, the rock stairs, whatever you want to call it. And he happened to land head first on a rock about the size of a bowling ball. There was no part of his body that hit besides the right side of his head. And then he just landed there. There were a couple rocks underneath it that were smaller that he hit. But it was this big rock, and the sound that it made was it was awful. The best way I can describe what the sound of this sounded like was a softball hitting the concrete. And I'm not saying like one of those squishy four-square balls. I'm talking about, what you play actual softball with, those big hard baseballs. Hollow, hard. I mean, it sounded awful. So, and he landed, head in the dirt, legs up in the air. I mean, it was bad. So, I was right there. I saw the whole thing, and I went and picked him up, and I mean, it was maybe a second or two, and he was just screaming, and it was a big deal because he had marks on his head. It was a head injury. I mean, he landed on his head. It was all 31 pounds of him landed on his head and on this rock. So, I picked him up. I ran up to where everyone else was, which was on the front of the house. Everyone was on the driveway kind of running around. The parents were all standing on the driveway. And, I brought him over and I was holding him in my arms, basically cradling him, trying to make sure that he felt comfortable and felt safe, because he was just crying from this, probably from being scared, from the pain.
Yeah.
It hurt. It had to have hurt.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And this was 6:20, I want to say 6:30, somewhere
Yeah,
right
it
around
was like
there.
between 6 and 6:30.
So
for sure.
The fear was concussion.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this was over with Becky's family. So my brother, who was a pediatric nurse, and my mom were at their houses, or their house.
Well, and my first thought was, someone got him ice. I think my mom got him ice.
Yep.
And then my brother and sister came and looked at him, and they were like, "Oh yeah."
Well, they played it off like it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, they're like, "It's probably okay," but obviously none of us are medical professionals besides Dave's brother, who is not there.
Right.
But my first thought was, well, like Dave's brother lives right around the corner. Let's just call him and have him come check Owen out because he's a PICU nurse, a pediatric ICU nurse. But he had just left for work, like literally 5 minutes before
he starts his
left
shift,
for work.
I think 7:30, I want to say.
Yeah.
So he usually gets there a little early. There's a little bit of a changeover. So it was, the timing was bad for that. So, you know, I mean, I was cradling him, I was holding him. And obviously our you know, Becky's brother and sister have seen this before because they have older kids. They've had this happen. They've been through it, and everybody was fine. So it just depends on your perspective of it. For us, this is the first time anything like this has ever happened, and it seemed world-shattering at that point. But we know people who have gone to the hospital recently. So we were very concerned about what was going on with his head injury, because at this point we didn't know what was going on. It was the side of his head, and again, our Becky's brother and sister have seen this before. For us, it was very scary. So,
and I think it's the first time, like, Owen has fallen. He actually fell around this time last year and like had huge scrapes on his face because he like ate it in the garage. He
tripped on the edge of the garage and landed face first on it.
Yeah, and so he had like huge scrapes on his face, but this was the first time it was like he literally like, and I didn't see it, but this is from Dave's retelling of it, like he like flew through the air and hit his head. So for us, we were like, oh, this isn't great. And he did have some abrasions on his head, some scrapes on his head.
A couple bumps.
Yeah, he wasn't like bleeding, but he had, like, we saw blood through the abrasions.
Correct, yeah.
So we kind of sat there and iced his head for a little bit, and then we were like, let's get him home, because we knew he had missed a nap that day, so he was probably exhausted. And then he had just like had a really big tumble.
So we were walking him home, and he started to fall asleep, which, you know, as far as I know, or was ever told, if you have a concussion, the last thing you want to do is fall asleep. And I think that if you asked anybody, they would probably agree with that. So we were trying to keep him up.
But it wasn't just like he was falling asleep. Like, he was falling asleep on you as you were carrying him, but his eyes were out of focus.
Yeah, he was a little out of it too, which didn't help the situation. So he was a little out of it. His eyes were getting a little, it didn't quite look right. Like, it looked like he was kind of more passing out than falling asleep.
Yeah, which again, we're like, well, he didn't have a nap today, so he's probably exhausted, but he also just smashed his head. So what do we do? So
we went home. We left everything early. We kind of just grabbed Emily, and we kind of just rushed home.
On the way home, we called the pediatrician line.
We did. Yeah. And then when we got home, I called Dan. Yes.
So we left a voicemail with our after hours phone line with our pediatrician. You called Dan. And then I think you were talking to Dan when our on-call pediatrician called us back. So we were both kind of talking to medical professionals at the same time, trying to relay what had happened. So Dave obviously saw it happen. He's relaying it to his brother. I'm asking Dave what happened. Meanwhile, we had called your mom to come over too. So she's coming in and trying to like calm Emily down because we were just like kind of all in a tizzy.
Yeah. And basically the consensus was from both our general practitioner and my brother was that we should go to urgent care or the ED. And I think that we opted to go to the ED just because we didn't know. It was kind of that weird time where it was getting close to everything kind of closing. And at this point, I want to say it was like 7. So it was at his bedtime at this point. Only one of us was going to be able to go into the hospital because of COVID restrictions and how many people can be in one room. So we decided that I was going to be the one.
Yeah.
Mainly
we
because
kind of decided that on the way.
Yes. Yeah. So we decided that both of us need to go because
I was going
to drive,
had to keep him up. And you drove. I sat in the back seat with him to keep him awake. But before that even happened, your mom came over, obviously, and kind of like took Emily, was just holding her, like
Mhm.
keeping her happy. And nobody else has ever put Emily to sleep besides me. So I was just like freaking out because I'm like, we have to go. We have to get
Yeah, I don't even
Owen.
know if I have.
No, you've never put Emily down. Yeah. So I was like, here's a bottle. We happen to have enough breast milk in the fridge. It's like she's never taken a bottle before bed. I don't even know exactly what I told your mom. It was probably gibberish.
It was really chaotic.
It was. But I was like, she's never taken a bottle before bed. Have her get as much as she can. I think I told her she goes to bed around 7 or she has her bottle around 7. And I think I was just like, do what you can, and ran out the door. Like I gave her no instructions and was like, bye, see you. No one has ever put Emily to bed other than me. But it went well.
She did it,
She did it.
She
Your
did it.
mom, she drank 4 out of 5 ounces.
which is really good.
And she said she held her to sleep a little bit, which is totally fine.
It's okay.
I'm like, totally, like, basically her parent, from Emily's perspective, her parents just abandoned her with a beloved grandmother.
Yeah.
But
But
was
for the other
probably
child.
like, what? Why did you guys just leave me? But she did it. And I think she slept through the whole night. Or
Yeah.
your mom had to go in once.
Yes, that's right.
And that was it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is enough about Emily. This story is about Owen. Back to Owen.
So on the car ride there, I remember you saying, because you were sitting in the back trying to keep him up, and I was driving, and I decided to take my car,
Mhm.
just because it's a smaller vehicle, it's faster, whatever. I'm used to driving it. Of course, we got in it, and there was virtually no gas in it,
Yeah.
which wasn't planned because I haven't driven that car in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So we say, screw it. We're going to make it. But I remember you saying, drive fast, but be safe.
Yes, I did. I said, drive fast, but be safe. And Dave is, you're a very good driver.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a very good driver. Sometimes I get car sick, but I get car sick a lot.
Mhm.
It's more when if I sit in the back seat with the kids when I get really car sick.
I don't
But
think you got
Dave-
car sick.
No, I was.
There was
I think
virtually
I
no
was
traffic.
Too focused on, again, keeping Owen awake because
Mhm.
in our heads we were like, we have to keep him awake. So we had given him a passy to help calm him down, a pacifier. And anytime he got a little tired, I took it out of his mouth, and then he would scream and cry and
Because we were pretty sure he had a concussion.
yeah. And everything we have ever known from movies or TV shows or just life has
Mhm.
been, don't let someone fall asleep when they have a concussion. So every time he started to get tired, I pulled his passy out and he would get super mad. And I had said to Dave, you're going to go in with him because you saw it happen. But
Right.
also, Owen and Dave just have like this crazy special bond. So I was like, this is hopefully his first and only time going to the ED, but he's going to be really scared and
Mhm.
he's going to need his special person there. So
Yeah.
I kind of was like, as much as I wanted, like as a mom, I wanted to go in there and be with him and just kind of pull the mom card and be like, sorry, too bad, I'm going in. But I was super selfless and was like, we have to think about Owen. It was hard for me to make that decision because I did want to go in with him, but at the
Mhm.
end of the day,
And I think any other instance, we probably would have had you go.
yeah, but because you had seen what had happened
Mhm.
and because you and Owen are just like 2 peas in a pod these days,
Mm-hmm.
he wakes up in the morning and he wants you.
Yeah. So,
So,
we
that
didn't
was our
know.
decision.
We didn't know what was going to happen either.
Mhm.
So, I got out of the car. You grabbed in the front seat. I
Mhm.
grabbed Owen, and I just went into the ED.
Yeah.
We didn't plan very well, I would say, because we didn't bring a diaper bag.
No diaper bag.
Which let's be honest, we forget the diaper bag a lot of the times, anyways.
Yeah.
Just the other day, we took him to the doctor for a general checkup and totally forgot the diaper
And he had a
bag.
blowout.
And he had a blowout.
Whoops.
And we had to use, I want to say they were supposed to be wipes to clean off like a thermometer for cleaning his butt.
Sorry,
did
Owen.
not- they
Sorry,
didn't-
doctor's office.
They did not work well, and there was poop everywhere.
Oh.
But anyways, we got there, and you took the car, and we didn't know. You know, we didn't know if it was going to be an hour. We didn't know if it was going to be 4
Yeah.
hours. It was going to go overnight. So Becky took the car, went over to the parking lot. I went in. And,
No, I didn't. Well, I went to a random parking lot because
did
there's
you?
no like at the hospital, you either go into long-term parking or like go into the parking garage. There's nowhere to just kind of like idle for 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I drove to a gas station because we were out of gas.
We
we
were
were
out of
on
gas.
E, barely made it to the hospital. And then my phone was at like 6% battery.
Oh, yeah.
So after I went to the gas station, I went to a CVS, ran in and grabbed, I grabbed a phone charger for the car, but I had to wait in line and then ask the attendant to walk over to the wall with the chargers and unlock it so they could get out a wall charger. And then when I got back in line, all of a sudden there was like 30 people in line. And I was like, oh my gosh.
It's what happens when you go to a CVS in
Of course.
the city.
So then I sat in the parking lot of the CVS until we spoke. So now I'm
Gotcha.
going to turn it over to you.
So luckily, everything kind of worked timing wise. So our doctor's office works with this hospital, and they're part of the network, the health network. So they had called ahead, told the pediatric ED that we were coming. Thank goodness we're very lucky for where we live. You know, we've got 2 really good hospitals, but one of them is a teaching hospital, and one of them has a children's hospital built right into it. Again, my brother works at that children's hospital, so it's fantastic. But we're very, very lucky. So we have a pediatric ED there. It's part of the children's hospital. Our general practitioner called ahead, told the ED that we were coming. My brother, since we had talked earlier, actually reached out to the on staff because he was actually at work at that point. Unfortunately, he works transport, so he flies in the helicopters. He drives in the ambulances, and he brings kids to and from the hospital. So he was going to one of the other local hospitals and bringing a kid in. So he wasn't there when we got there, but he called ahead and made sure that we had a good nurse, a good doctor, make sure he knew who was on staff. So we were being very taken care of, and it was kind of nice having a couple connections going into something like this because you just don't know, and everything's very scary, and even with and with COVID too, it's a lot. So, you know, went in, we didn't bring a mask for Owen. He's 2 years and 4 months now, so he needs a mask. He wears a mask. He's fine. By this point, he was still in and out. We waited for maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes after checking in, and the nurse that Dan had set up for us took us back, did the checks, did the oxygen levels, tested the grip. Everything checked out good. The grip was a little off, so I got a little scared about that because he tested, grabbing something and then pulling it out of his hand, and there were a couple of times he didn't hold on to it, but at least one of them must have worked because they said everything passed. They took us to a room, and it was a normal size hospital bed, but the rooms were normal size rooms but cut in half because it was a busy night. It just happened to be a busy night there. They said they had been dead previous, but just there was an influx of people or kids coming in. And the one thing about being in the pediatric ED is that there's so many crying babies. You're just not prepared for that. There were 3 babies, I think I heard, and for some reason Owen is woken up by crying babies. I don't know what it is, TV, whatever it might be. That and clapping seemed to get through him even in sleeping. So they set us up with our room. The doctor came in, did a initial check, kind of looked at his head a little bit. They were super great. They gave him some really cool dinosaur stickers. They gave him red popsicle, which is insane. So it was one of those red popsicles with the 2 sticks, and you got to break it, and then there's 2 popsicles. I don't know if you've been to a hospital, it's all white linens. It's insane. As a parent, you're like, no. It was like driving on the road backwards in a car. It was so. I just was like, I guess this is okay.
Like too sticky, too drippy.
Yeah.
It's gonna stain.
And
He's gonna get upset. It's gonna break, and he's gonna get upset.
Yeah, just any number
Everything.
of things. It just seemed like a bad idea. But he ate a whole popsicle, Luckily, there was a sink there. He didn't eat the second half because he started getting kind of tired. But he liked the stickers. It was really great. They had a TV just like they always do, but it was actually a nicer TV than you see in some of the other hospitals, even in the one that we went to for when we had the kids. And it had live TV, which was cool, but it also had like direct TV, so you had like movies you could pick from. And our son is just so engulfed into Cars.
Mm-hmm.
Cars the movies, Pixar Cars, but also just Cars in general.
Yeah.
I think we've watched that movie 1,000 times. And he's only 2 years and 4 months, so we've seen it a lot.
And he plays with cars every day, all day, every day.
He does.
He just plays with cars.
It's
like
just
Matchbox
a thing.
cars.
It's a way of life for him.
Yeah.
So luckily, I found this random abominable movie or whatever it was, and we watched that for a little bit. But we found Cars, and we watched all of Cars. Luckily, he was able to fall asleep. They did a couple checkups. They deemed it not necessary to do a brain scan or a head scan on him. The radiation that comes with the x-ray or with the scan at his age, I guess, is a little bit of not a danger, but they try to avoid it if they can. It's a concern, yeah. So Dan made sure that we were with people who wouldn't unnecessarily do that kind of stuff. So they did a checkup. It looked fine, but for head trauma like this, they said if it had been the front of his head, it would have probably not been a big deal. But because it was the temple, and it was basically from his temple back to behind his ear. So it was in front of his ear, behind his ear, and it was this crescent moon kind of mark that was on his head. They said that it was a little more of a high-risk area, so they wanted to keep him on observation for 4 hours from the incident. So the good news is that that's talking about 6:30 from when it originally happened. Now, at this point, we're probably looking at 8, I want to say.
Yeah, I want to say it was about 8.
So we were on observation till 10:30 with multiple checkups. Now, again, we had Cars on. There was a pillow there, blankets. Owen was all sticky. We had no diaper. He hadn't been changed in hours, so it was exploding. I hadn't had dinner. He hadn't had dinner.
He had dinner. He hadn't had dinner. He had dinner before the walk, but you met us at the bunny walk.
That's right. I came direct from work.
Late. Yeah.
So he had dinner. I hadn't had any dinner. So we're basically just under observation. Luckily, again, watching Cars, he fell asleep at a certain point. And my brother actually got back at that point. So he got back around, I want to say, 9:30 to the hospitals, and he stopped in and said hi, made sure everything was all good. We actually talked to him after the fact, and I guess there's a running gag with him that if there's an Asian guy in there, it's in one of the rooms, it's his brother kind of thing. So one of his nurse friends went up and said, "Hey, your brother's over in room 39," and he goes, "Yeah, he is." And they go, "No, like it's And he goes, no, really? And they go, what? And he's like, no, that's really my brother and my nephew in that room. And they're like, oh, so, work humor. But he stopped in, made sure everything was good, said we were with some really good people. He actually offered to get me some dinner because, I hadn't eaten anything yet. And at that point, I was just very concerned. So I wasn't really hungry. And there were a couple other checkups. I think they checked his oxygen level, his blood pressure, and the real thing that we were looking to make sure he didn't do was vomit. So vomiting was a big deal. Fast forward to all the other stuff, it was fine for him to sleep. So apparently, this might be news to everybody, it was news to us, that if you're concussed or whatever it might be, or think you're concussed, sleeping's not a problem. Not anymore, apparently. It's just vomiting. So I guess the vomiting part of it is where the concern might be. I don't know the background behind it, but luckily he was able to sleep. So he slept for about half the time that we were there.
But also, don't take our word for it. Always consult your doctor if you think you or one of your loved ones has a concussion.
Yeah.
This is just our story.
Yeah.
We don't want anyone saying we didn't seek medical help because Dave and Becky said you can sleep when you have a concussion. No. Always seek medical help when you think someone has a concussion.
So, and one of the things I haven't talked about yet is it was, it was really hard. Um, you know, I I think I'm a good dad.
You
know,
are a good dad.
I do everything I can. I can't always be there for work reasons, and um, but I try to be there for my kids, for Becky, and he was right within my grasp. I can't exactly remember how far away from him I was, but I was close enough to him where I feel like I should have been able to grab him, and in the moment I feel like maybe I hesitated. I don't know that I did, but I just feel like maybe I thought like, oh, it wasn't going to end up being as bad as I thought it was potentially going to be. Um it I kept thinking, running it back in my head, thinking that maybe there was something I could do. Maybe I could have, dove and caught him, or maybe I could have grabbed him by the back of the shirt and pulled him back, or, maybe I could have, ran faster than, because I can run faster than him. I run faster than him and dive and let him fall on me, and I don't know that I could have done any of that.
I think if you had tried to dive to quote unquote save him, it could have made it worse.
It could have.
Because the day after, we were back at my parents' house for Easter,
Mm-hmm.
and Dave brought me over to the side and was like, here, look at this. I'm going to like walk you through what happened. And based off of what happened, if you dove on him, I think you would have made it worse.
Everybody was like, it's not a big deal, but nobody saw it other than me. Even his cousin who was over there, I don't think saw what happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was just me and him. And, you want to protect your kid. You want to make sure that they're safe. And when you fail, it's just hard.
I don't think you failed though. You were there with him, and when he needed you the most, when he did get hurt, you were right there to pick him up and console him and let him know that you were there to make sure he was okay. I think as parents, the hardest thing for a parent to do is see your kids get hurt. Because at the end of the day, we can't protect them from everything. We want to, but we can't protect them from everything. But we can make sure we're there when something does happen.
And I think it's a harsh reminder of that.
Yeah.
In physical form, because you always think that you're always going to be able to protect them, and you always know that that's not the reality.
Mm-hmm.
But you feel like, yeah, maybe you'll beat the odds, and you'll always be able to protect them. And when it happens and you can't, it's a sobering kind of, it's sobering to go through, because you don't think that that's going to happen. Again, I would jump in front of a car for him. I'd push him out of the way. I'd jump in front of a bullet for him. Without hesitation, or at least I think like that, and then something like this happens, and it's just this minor, and you think that you're going to be able to get him, save him, protect him, and it's just out of reach. So that's just, it took me a while to get over that. I felt responsible for that for a while. It took me a while to get over that. Even talking about it now is a little hard, because it again, you want to protect your kids. You want to be that bubble to shield them from physical harm and emotional harm, and just make sure that they're okay. And it's impossible to do. It's an impossible task, as much as you want to protect them. So I was sitting in the hospital, and it was hard because he was asleep, I was alone, and all you're there with your thoughts, thinking, we're here because I wasn't able to stop this from happening. And that it ran through my head all night. So we were supposed to be discharged at 10:30. Again, it was very busy in the pediatric ED. So they came around, I want to say 10:45 and realized we were still there. Luckily, he hadn't vomited at that point. At 10:30 when they came in, they checked his vitals again. Unfortunately, they had to take his temperature, which is under the arm for them, and that did wake him up. Actually, 9:30 that happened. 9:30, 10, somewhere around there. So he woke up for the last half of it. Because we didn't actually get out of there till 11 or a little after.
I picked you up a little after 11. I picked you guys up.
Yeah, so it took us a little while to get our discharge papers too. Again, they were very busy, so they hadn't forgot about us. It just there were other more traumatic instances that were there. You know, we were just under observation, so we were low on the risk level at that point. But we brought Owen home. You know, I called Becky when we were getting discharged, and, you know, I sat in the back with him all the way home. And, you know, we didn't get home till probably midnight, I want to say.
I want to say it was a little bit before midnight. And on the way home, we decided we were going to have a slumber party in the family room.
Because we were advised at discharge that we want to make sure he's out of the real risk window, but to keep an eye on vomiting and things like that. And we didn't think that we would be able to tell or hear if he vomited in his room through the monitors. So we thought that, you know, maybe it'd be, you know, quote unquote fun to have him sleep in his nap spot downstairs while we slept next to him to make sure that nothing happened. So Becky was on the couch with Owen. He uses like this little pregnancy pillow.
Yeah, like the pregnancy pillow that you sleep with, that's like a huge C. He sleeps with that. That's on the couch on our sectional. So on like the thicker end of the sectional, we have the pregnancy pillow to keep him from rolling off. But while he rolls a ton at night, he does not move very much when he naps. So he sleeps with that during his nap time. And so we were like, all right, well, he can sleep in his nap pod, which is what we call it, his nap pod. I'll sleep on the other end of the sectional. And then Dave was going to sleep on a very thin mat on the floor.
I slept on the floor near a vent.
Yes.
And his nap pod is downgraded. So his old nap pod was like 9 pillows, a couple blankets.
It was literally
it was basically like sleeping in a
nest.
beanbag chair.
Yeah, it was like a bird's nest made out of pillows that we had to put together in a very strategic way every day. And so eventually I got sick of that and was like, you can just lay on the couch with this pillow.
It took up a lot of floor space too. It took up a lot of space.
It did.
It was like this whole corner next to the sectional.
Maybe one day we'll recreate it and post it for everyone to see.
I feel like we might have pictures of that because he used to roll out of it towards the end.
Yeah, he did. Anyways, so he slept in his nap pod spot. I slept on the other side of the couch. Dave slept on the floor. And so this isn't funny. This isn't funny, but it's kind of funny.
I have no idea what you're going to talk about.
It's funny now. So Owen was fine all night. He didn't end up falling asleep until a little after midnight, which, like, this kid missed a nap. And then he didn't even fall asleep until like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then was up like an hour or two later to go home. So he's running on zero sleep. He finally falls asleep, and Dave literally eats dinner at midnight after he's asleep. And we kind of have like a sobering conversation where you had talked to me about your feelings, about like I felt like I should have done more. And we kind of talk about it, and I want Dave to feel like it wasn't his fault, but I also know in the moment he's probably not going to feel like that. And I remember him telling me, I just don't – this was on the way home, actually. You had said, I don't want Owen, because he's hit his head, I don't want him to forget that I'm his favorite. And I was like, what a dumb thing to think right now. That's so funny. I laughed like hysterically driving home and was like, of course he's not going to forget that you're his favorite. That's ridiculous. Cut to the next morning. Owen has woken up at like 5:20. Normally he wakes up somewhere between 6 and 7. So it's much earlier. he kind of wakes up and he sees me laying next to him, and he's like, "Oh, mommy, you're there." And then I was like, "Oh yeah, daddy's laying on the floor. Do you want him to come lay with you?" And he's like, "No, mommy." And for the next hour, he only wanted me. And like he literally crawled next to me and like spooned with me for the next hour, and which was like so great, and it was awesome to cuddle with him. But in my head, I was thinking, "Oh no, Dave is gonna think that Owen has forgotten that Dave is actually his favorite, not mommy." And I'm sure we haven't actually talked about this, but I feel like you were probably freaking out.
Oh, I was.
Yeah,
I was
you were 100%
totally freaking out.
But I think it was just that he woke up and I was there on the couch with him, and you were on the floor, so he didn't see you right away.
He typically leans towards whoever wakes him up or picks him up or whoever's with him when he gets up. Because if you go in and pick him up,
he's
in
more
the morning,
into me
he's
that
more
day.
into you at least in the morning.
Yeah. So that's all it was, is like I woke up and we were literally like sharing a pillow basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, "Oh, mommy, let's cuddle." And then I was like, "Oh, do you want daddy to cuddle with you?" But he didn't see you.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, "No, I just want to be with you."
I gave you the couch because I don't mind sleeping on the floor. I slept
Yeah.
on your old gymnastics mat and a
It's
pad.
like a 1-inch mat. That's
I think I
probably,
had it folded up though, so it was like 2 inches.
But it's probably like 20 years old.
I think I used
It's so old.
the pack and play mat too.
Okay.
So I might have used
Okay.
both those and couch pillows and a couple blankets and a pillow.
Yeah.
But the good news is that he's happy.
He's okay. Yep.
He's
totally
healthy.
fine.
He's acting just the same way that he always did, and I'm still the favorite.
Yes. Dave is still the favorite. It did not knock any sense into him
No.
that mommy should be the favorite.
None.
So
He is more conscious about when he hits his head now. I have noticed that.
he did. And when we were at my parents' house again the next day, he did kind of like very tentatively walk towards that side of the house and stopped and was like, oh no, I shouldn't go over there. And we were like, yeah, let's stay away from there today.
Yeah.
And we've gone over there since then, and he has also been like, oh, he like will point to his head and go, oh no.
Mm-hmm.
So
He
he
remembers
knows that like an accident happened.
Yeah,
over
he remembers it. And your parents,
They fenced it off.
They fenced it off,
Yep.
which I really appreciate. I know you do too, but
Like less than 24 hours later, it was fenced off. But we were very appreciative that literally within 24
Yeah, your
hours
dad-
the fence was back
your dad
up.
dug a post hole, which is like super deep. So
Yeah. Yeah. So
Um,
that was why this podcast is delayed and why we
Yes.
kind of shifted the topic here to talk about this.
Everything's been good. No vomiting.
No vomiting. He's
Everyone's
good.
happy and healthy.
We're very lucky.
I don't even think you can see where the
No,
impact
and we
actually
took
was
him
now.
to the doctors for a checkup, like our pediatrician.
That's
couple
what it
days
was when he
later.
blew out.
Yeah,
It was that checkup.
yeah, and the doctor was like, his head. I can't even really tell where he hit it, or like he could tell, but he was like, this doesn't look bad to me, and it's honestly the best he's acted around me, and
It happened to be a daycare day.
it was our first experience having to deal with an emergency with
Yep.
our kids, and I think we handled it pretty well. We got really lucky.
Mhm.
There's so many people out there that, go through probably like way worse or have to stay in the
Mhm.
hospital longer. And we just want to tell those people that no matter what happens, you're good parents, then you're getting your kids the help that they need.
Mhm.
And, no one wants to have to take their kids to the emergency department, but you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. And we
Also, this brings up a memory for me when we first told your brother, who is a PICU nurse, a pediatric ICU nurse, that we were pregnant. I remember him telling me that kid better not end up in my department. And so this whole
He
night,
did.
my mind kept going to, oh no, he's going to be so pissed. He's going to be so pissed because he's ending. And granted, Owen was not in the ICU. He was just in the
just in
emergency
the
department,
ED.
really just under observation. But I remember thinking, oh crap. we're going to get so much crap for this. But he was very gracious, and
he was supportive.
He was very supportive, and, he wanted to make sure his nephew was okay as well.
Yeah. And all the nurses and he said everyone that he knew that came and stopped in and saw Owen thought he was the cutest kid. And that was saying a lot because he had bedhead. He was sprawled out on that bed. He looked pretty bad.
When I picked them up at that night, just after 11, Dave is holding him on the sidewalk outside the emergency department, and I could see Owen's hair from the stoplight. I looked over and was like, oh gosh, his hair was everywhere. And granted, he needs a haircut, but his hair was sticking up at all sorts of angles. And I was like, well, the kids looked better, but at least he has a somewhat clean bill of health. That's all that mattered.
It took the doctor a while to find the head wound from all the hair.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what was going on. That's what's kind of stopped us, our normal schedule. But like we said, everything is good. Everyone's happy and healthy, and he's back to normal. And like I said, just a little more conscious about his head.
Yes.
I will say that at one point I was looking up on Amazon different kinds of helmets that he could wear.
I forgot about that. Dave sent me 3 helmets that he could buy for Owen to just wear recreationally.
When playing. There was like a foam helmet
that looks like a diaper.
That looked like a diaper.
Yeah.
Which I think was like extra sensory kind of thing. There was a horse riding helmet, so it looks stylish.
For horseback riding.
For horseback riding. So if it takes a kick in the head from a horse, I gotta imagine it's gonna be safe enough for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was this other random foam, like EVA foam helmet. It looked like a bike helmet, but it was made out of EVA foam, which is like...
this is when you were 100% spiraling in your own thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because we had talked earlier in the evening, but your phone battery was also...
getting low.
Mm-hmm. So we decided just to text. And so we were texting about how he was feeling and how he was getting in his own head a little bit. And, obviously trying to have a conversation like that over text is not ideal. But then he started sending me these screenshots of helmets that he's going to buy for Owen on Amazon. And I was like, just hold off on these for a while.
It took all of my self-control not to hit buy now for all of them.
I have a question for you. Did you actually buy one and then cancel the order ever?
No, because it's a hassle.
Okay.
But
wondering.
I
wouldn't be surprised if you did.
let me put it this way. Owen has a wish list for stuff that we're going to buy him. I'm pretty sure they're all in the wish list.
Oh, I want to check the wish list now. Should I check it live? Let me check it.
Sure. Go ahead. Check it.
I'm going to see if there are any helmets in Owen's wish list on Amazon.
I feel like I might have done that. I can't remember off the top of my head.
There are
I know I sent you the pictures. I don't remember.
Yeah. Is it under Owen's list?
I think it's under Owen's list.
There is in fact at least one helmet in here.
It might have been the one I decided would made the most sense.
A $50 helmet, an OptiCool headgear soft protective helmet, extra small.
Well, I felt like his head was extra small, even though he looks like he has a big head.
But you made sure to choose the color blue because that's his favorite color.
Yeah, I chose the right color.
Anyways, we did not end up buying a helmet for Owen.
As far as she knows.
Gosh. I'm going to come home one day and Owen's going to be running around with a helmet on.
He'd love it.
Well,
maybe.
Maybe not. But anyways, we are grateful to have 2 healthy kids right now and be able to share this crazy experience with you and hope that all of you and your kids are doing good.
Yes. And if you have any stories like this, feel free to share them. Again, we kind of share this stuff to let everyone know that it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
But you can reach out to us at spillpoopodcast@gmail.com.
Parenting is hard. We're all in this together. All right. Well, thanks everyone for today.
Thanks for listening.